Under a crescent moon, a dark swamp forest sits below a massive mountain where a dragon silhouette is vibing. The forest floor is damp AF, scattered with decaying wood and floating glowing spores. On a large tree, a small glowing yellow clump clings to the bark. Suddenly, the yellow blob opens two eyes and looks around, absolutely lost. He remembers his past life as a human, before he fell asleep and got isekai'd. Back in the forest, he realizes he's respawned and his yellow body starts trembling. He quickly calms down, accepting it as a common isekai trope. He yells into the forest asking if anyone's there, but immediately regrets it when he notices red eyes glowing from the shadows. He sees giant mosquitoes over the swamp water and notes the area's miasma and dampness. Despite the cursed environment, he feels physically comfortable, wondering what build he rolled. Suddenly, a system window pops up. The screen displays his stats. Level 1 slime mold with trait Decomposer. A red alert warns his HP is critical at 730 and autophagy has started, telling him to eat or hibernate immediately. The slime panics as his HP bar drops. Realizing he'll get permadeath if he doesn't eat, he frantically searches for loot. His HUD highlights his Decomposer trait. He figures he can munch the wood he's on and decides to try. He spreads his body against the surface and wraps around the wood. It tastes like a soggy biscuit. Finally full, he burps. He receives a skill point and must choose between Decompose or Pulsation. He assigns the point to Pulsation. The skill buffs to level 3, and his veins begin to throb. He realizes Pulsation lets him move his protoplasm. Since the wood offers no more XP, he leaves spawn to explore the map. He stretches his body down the log, enjoying the movement tech. As he moves, he spots a large purple mushroom spawning on the ground. His slime instincts tell him it's legendary tier loot. He slides toward it, wraps his tendrils around the stem, and spreads over the mushroom cap, ready to farm. As he eats, he hallucinates being in a cafe, approaching a pink-haired waifu for an online date he calls Pure Little Mushroom. The fantasy becomes a nightmare when she turns, revealing she's a boss mob with multiple eyes and a drooling mouth. He screams. Back in reality, a red alert warns of a poison debuff consuming his nutrients. He panics as his HP drops continuously. He tears off the part of his body attached to the mushroom to stop the DOT. It works. The system confirms the debuff is eliminated, but his max HP got nerfed to 17. Tilted, he dips from the mushroom and finds a safe stump to grind wood. After 15 minutes, he gained no XP due to cooldown, but his HP is restored. Fully recovered and locked in, he begins his strat. Munch bits of the poisonous mushroom, retreat to heal, and loop. He calls this cheese strat Project Move Mountain. He wraps around the mushroom stalk again, confident he can farm it with enough grinding. As he loops the process, he hallucinates again. The toxic waifu looks cooked. He slaps handcuffs on her wrists, appearing as a MC in a suit. He notes it's their 8th round and asks if she'll rage quit. Back in reality, the mushroom is now a shriveled stump. As he finishes munching the last of it, a system window confirms his W, awarding him XP. He also unlocks a new skill, Poison Resistance Level 1. He realizes this buff let him tank the poison longer during his attempts. However, he's tilted. He didn't level up as he expected massive XP from beating the mushroom. Shaking off the L, he sees many other sus mushrooms waiting. He decides to just keep grinding his way through the map. The protagonist continues his feast by eating a straw pipe mushroom. Wanting more power, he eats a dangerous monk's cap mushroom. The spicy toxic meal raises him to level 4 and buffs his poison resistance to level 2. Not satisfied with single targets, he covers a massive cluster of white mushrooms, declaring they'll all become his nutrients. After eating the pack, he hits level 5 and his HP maxes out at 79. The system warns him he's hit a saturation point and won't farm more XP from mushrooms for 24 hours. Full and satisfied, he burps and packs the remaining mushrooms on his back to carry. He travels the forest with colorful poisonous mushrooms on his slimy body. He compares his strat to a crab using sea anemones for protection, believing his big brain disguise will scare off any mobs that might eat him. Suddenly, the wind picks up. A swarm of giant hornets buzzes overhead, carrying large chunks of red meat. The protagonist hides in the tall grass, hoping his poisonous camouflage works. As one hornet flies low with its prize, a massive tongue shoots from the shadows, snatching the insect from the air. A giant green frog sits on a log, munching the hornet. The protagonist freezes in fear, realizing another deadly predator has entered the zone. The frog's attack triggers the swarm. The giant hornets drop their food and dive down to attack the frog. From his hiding spot in the grass, the protagonist watches the chaos. The frog gets quickly overwhelmed by the insect's sheer numbers. One hornet drives its stinger into the frog's backside, while another latches onto its head for a vicious bite. His fear turns to opportunism. He reasons monster corpses would give far more XP than the wood and mushrooms he's been grinding. The hornets swarm relentlessly. In a desperate clutch move, the frog's throat glows purple. It unleashes a skill called Empowered Tongue, skewering multiple hornets in midair. Suddenly, a massive shadow falls. The frog looks up in confusion before a predator strikes with blinding speed, splattering blood violently through the air. A colossal bird with reddish feathers and a snake for a tail is revealed, having easily snatched the frog with its talons. The terrifying creature lowers its head, its glowing red eye locking onto the trembling protagonist. Demoralized, the protagonist gives up, sarcastically inviting the bird to eat him while complaining the game is unbalanced. His reflection is visible in the bird's massive pupil, highlighting how tiny he is compared to this apex predator. The bird tilts its head, losing interest in the small, unappetizing blob, and takes flight. The wind from the takeoff is so powerful it blasts the protagonist away. He tumbles through the air, taking 30 damage as his mushroom camouflage gets scattered. The forest slowly returns to silence. Under the crescent moon, the protagonist lands on a log, shivering from the near-death experience. He analyzes the brutal hierarchy, placing the giant bird at the top and himself at the very bottom, on the same level as dirt. However, he realizes this low status is what saved him. The power gap was so wide he wasn't even considered food. He opens his status window. Level 5 slime mold. HP 79. Skill points 13. Decomposition over 6. Pulsation level 3. Poison resistance level 2. Despite the rapid leveling, he feels disheartened. His title is still Weak Creature. He questions his future, wondering how a simple slime mold can survive in such a dangerous map. Overcome with exhaustion, he sighs, wishing he could wake up safe in his bed. The night eventually passes, and the morning sun pierces through the forest canopy. Suddenly, a viscous green liquid drips down from the red mushroom cap above, landing directly on the unsuspecting slime. The substance acts like a strong acid debuff, sizzling against the protagonist's yellow body. Desperate to escape the burning status effect, he triggers a new skill called Burst, which instantly stimulates his internal cytoplasm to generate a powerful thrust. The force of the ability launches him violently away from the log, scattering his loot everywhere as he gets yeeted into the ground. He quickly respawns his position and looks back to identify his attacker, spotting a large white snail with a red shell slowly grinding across the wood. The snail ignores the beef and spits out a stream of acid liquor onto a nearby mushroom. The acid procs instantly, dissolving the fungus into a green, soupy sludge. The snail happily slurps up the liquefied meal while the protagonist watches in disgust, flaming it as a stinking snail. The snail finishes farming and looks up, its eye stalks twitching as it notices the tilted slime mold. The protagonist is absolutely mauling, thinking that while stealing loot is griefing, dripping acidic saliva on his face, and nearly deleting him is completely unforgivable. However, the snail just stares back with wide, innocent eyes, making a pitiful sound to bait sympathy. The protagonist tries to maintain his rage, telling the creature not to play victim or try to manipulate him with cuteness. The snail slumps down next to a mushroom, looking incredibly dejected and continuing to whimper sadly. Seeing the mob looking so pathetic, the protagonist's tilt begins to fade. He reflects that they're both just fellow NPCs at the bottom of the tier list. Letting out a sigh, he decides to drop the beef. He tells the snail it can go ahead and grind as there's plenty of mushrooms to share in the loot pool. The snail immediately perks up, pogging happily at the W. As the acid snail happily slurps up the liquefied mushroom, the protagonist watches and begins to let his copium run wild. He wonders if this situation is a classic friendship arc speedrun found in shonen manga. His delusion escalates to imagining them evolving into OP humanoid warriors together, and eventually clutching side by side to defeat a great Demon King raid boss through the power of their bond. Convinced that companions are meta for survival, he decides to shoot his shot. He approaches the white snail and proposes forming a guild. The snail responds with a cute emote, but instead of accepting the party invite, it suddenly vomits a massive stream of yellow acidic bile directly onto the protagonist. The attack catches the slime mold completely off guard. Admitting he got absolutely baited by the snail's fake GG energy, and realizing it has better stats than him, the protagonist decides to rage quit while the creature is momentarily busy eating the vomit. However, the acid snail looks up, noticing its loot is trying to dip. It immediately turns and begins to chase him, refusing to let the slime escape. Desperate to clutch the situation, the protagonist spends his remaining skill points to buff his pulsation skill from level 3 to level 4. Yelling that he's going full tryhard mode, he surges forward with newfound movement speed. The two slow mobs engage in a high-speed chase across the log. To the protagonist's frustration, he realizes that even with his stat buff, the stinking snail is matching his speed perfectly. The acid snail prepares its next ability, its body convulsing as it charges up. Suddenly, it spits out a massive glob of corrosive fluid, proccing its skill, acid liquor. The attack hits the protagonist with devastating crit damage, physically splitting him into two separate puddles. Stunned and divided, the protagonist momentarily wonders if his consciousness automatically stays in the larger chunk of his separated body. The snail looms over him, letting out a terrifying screech as it opens a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth. Without hesitation, the snail slams its face into the puddle of slime and begins to devour the protagonist. As he's getting consumed, the protagonist decides to tank the pain, telling himself he must survive this encounter to farm revenge later. The snail swallows a mouthful of the yellow slime and pauses for a moment. However, its eyes immediately glow with a menacing red light, indicating it's not done grinding and intends to delete the rest of him. In a desperate clutch play, the protagonist secretly wraps a tentacle around the stem of a purple poisonous mushroom lying nearby. As the snail lunges forward with its mouth wide open to take another chomp, the protagonist activates his burst skill. Using the sudden proc, he shoves the poisonous mushroom directly into the snail's gaping hitbox. The snail bites down on the toxic fungus. The effect is instantaneous. Purple veins bulge across the snail's white skin as the poison debuff floods its system. It writhes in agony, foaming at the mouth as the toxin deletes it from the inside. Finally, the massive snail gets absolutely clapped. The system notifies the protagonist that the target has been eliminated, awarding him enough XP to ding from level 5 to 6. Catching his breath, the protagonist explains his 200 IQ strat. He had noticed that the snail always used acid to melt the mushrooms before munching them. He deduced this was because the snail had 0 poison resistance and couldn't eat them raw. By force-feeding it, he exploited its fatal weakness. The slime mold pops off next to the corpse, celebrating his first PvE kill. Curious about the loot drops for decomposing a monster, he slides his yellow body onto the snail's white flesh. However, he quickly recoils, finding the snail meat sticky and absolutely cursed. The experience is so down bad, he stops. Status: decomposition failed. XP farmed, 0. He looks at the corpse. Conflicted, he considers yeeting it away, but feels it would waste a W he risked his HP for. He reminds himself that he must get swole quickly and cannot afford to be a picky eater. He decides to tank it, figuratively holding his nose, and forces himself to swallow the foul loot. The forest fills with the sounds of retching as he struggles to keep the disgusting food down, looking like a glitching mess of slime. When he finally finishes, the system announces the decomposition is complete. He gains enough XP to ding from level 6 to 7, and his HP bar recovers. Despite the system's copium, he feels absolutely cooked. He lies in a melted puddle by the empty red shell, feeling worse than before he ate. He checks his status menu. Level 7 slime mold. Skill points, 14. Decomposition, Ling 6. Pulsation, LV3. Poison resistance, Length 3. Burst, Lever 1. He cynically translates his build. Decomposition is munching. Pulsation is dipping. Poison resistance is getting griefed. The slime mold accepts his reality, telling himself molding is useless for his mob class. He imagines powerful forest predators as muscular gigachads and focuses on survival mode. He decides to buff his pulsation skill again. The skill levels to 4, and he eagerly tests his movement speed. He finds his new top speed is 20 centimeters per second. However, when he calculates this is only 0.78 km per hour, he despairs, realizing he's still incredibly low elo despite the grind. A week later, the protagonist is chilling inside a hollow log. He's exhausted the local loot pool and only dinged 2 levels. It's time to find a new spawn point. Before dipping, he decides on one last sweaty scavenge to max out his stomach and inventory slots. He activates search mode. By flattening his body into a vein-like network, he can explore multiple zones at once. His yellow body spreads across the forest floor like a living mini-map. Pings. 3 white mushrooms stored. Loot snagged 6 small grass mushrooms. He consumes a cluster of blue mushrooms, granting him XP and buffing poison resistance to level 4. While expanding his search network, his yellow tendrils hit a hard red object. System alert. Target cannot be decomposed. Before he can react, he takes 9 damage from a sharp DOT. He retracts his body, absolutely tilted, to find he's encountered that mob again. The attacker procs acid liquor, spraying a green corrosive nuke. The slime mold gets grazed, taking 7 more damage, but is relieved that his buffed movement speed helped him juke most of the nuke. The enemy is another acid snail. This one has higher DPS. He moves evasively, confident the snail cannot land another crit. However, the snail procs a devastating close-range ability, splattering the slime mold and dealing a massive 33 burst damage. The snail pauses, thinking it secured the frag. But the protagonist uses this clutch moment. He intentionally tanks the hit to close the gap and shoves a poisonous purple mushroom into the snail's hitbox. He flames the mob, citing the massive IQ diff between them and thinking it's easy mode once the weakness is discovered. The 200 IQ play procs instantly. The acid snail convulses as the poison debuff spreads through its HP bar. The protagonist consumes the defeated mob, once again tanking the absolutely grimy taste. He sits in a melted puddle, feeling absolutely cooked from the meal, but admitting that massive XP drops make the suffering meta. After respawning his energy, the slime mold leaves the red shell loot behind and continues his journey across the grassy forest map. As he grinds, he hears a rustling sound. Assuming it's another low elo snail, he arrogantly calls out, commanding the hidden mob to reveal itself. To his absolute shock, the creature that bursts from the grass is a massive, terrifying, blade-legged centipede boss. The slime mold freezes as the towering insect casts a menacing shadow over his hitbox. The centipede twitches its sharp blue legs, creating a rhythmic, intimidating sound effect. The centipede lunges. In full panic mode, the protagonist tries his previous clutch strat, holding up a poisonous mushroom and mauling for the boss to stay back. The cheese strat fails completely. The centipede's sharp mandibles instantly slice the mushroom in half before it can even be eaten. The protagonist stares in disbelief, realizing his one trick is useless. The monster follows up with a skill called Myriad Blade Strangle, wrapping its long body around the slime and squeezing hard. However, the situation flips hard. The centipede struggles, unable to proc any damage. The protagonist realizes his liquid body build is literally immune to blade attacks and constriction debuffs. The predator becomes free loot as the slime mold engulfs the trapped insect, happily farming the delivered XP. Emboldened by this massive W, the protagonist continues his session. He spots a large green beetle, tries to gank a flying hornet, but mauls over the height diff, and avoids a cockroach because he doesn't want to eat that cursed mob. Sometime later, he opens his status menu, revealing absolutely cracked gains. Level 13 slime mold, max HP 157, pulsation, level 8, poison resistance, level 5. He leans back on some moss, pogging at how fast he's leveling since eating meat loot. He visualizes his place in the tier list, above insects, but still getting gapped by lizards and the terror bird. He decides it's time to aim higher and farm giant frog legs for premium XP. He arrives at a murky pond and wonders if valuable loot is hidden below. He dips a yellow tendril into the water, and the reaction is instant and grimy. His body swells like a balloon. Through the osmotic pressure debuff, he learns that fresh water rushes into his cells. He'll burst and get permadeath if submerged. He quickly retracts his limb, forced to abandon his underwater farming plan. Suddenly, bubbles rise. A large dark green crab mob emerges. His confusion turns to hunger as he imagines a plate of steamed crab, finally, normal food. He tries to bait the creature to squat up, but the crab ignores the chat and climbs onto a rock. The crab procs Bubble Barrage, firing a high-pressure water beam. Crit 25 burst damage. The protagonist is absolutely mauling that a simple water gun can nuke him so badly. The crab fires again. The slime mold tries to juke but takes another 10 damage as he scrambles away in full panic mode. He slides behind a large tree root, blocking the incoming water nukes. Breathing hard, he realizes this opponent has way higher DPS than the insects. He hides and waits, hoping the crab will lose aggro and reset. Suddenly, a loud splash is heard as the crab jumps off its perch. The protagonist peeks out from behind the tree, wondering if the mob has finally reset aggro. To his absolute horror, the giant swamp crab hauls its bulk out of the pond and onto land. The crab snaps its claws aggressively. It activates its dash ability, scuttling sideways with terrifying movement speed to close the gap. The protagonist watches in shock as the predator rushes toward his camping spot. Realizing the crab wants to eat him, the slime mold absolutely panics and frantically climbs the tree trunk. He clings to the bark, looking down and feeling relieved, thinking he can juke the water attacks by gaining high ground. A chittering sound from above interrupts his copium. He looks up to see a large, pale spider with red eyes climbing down toward him. Unthreatened, the protagonist dismissively waves a tentacle, telling the spider to despawn as he's busy with the crab. The spider does not back down. It hisses aggressively, its red eyes glowing. The spider suddenly uses arachnid slash, its front leg striking like a blade with insane speed. To his absolute shock, the attack slices through his body, severing a large chunk of slime and dealing 30 burst damage. The spider catches and eats the severed slime. The protagonist is absolutely bewildered. He thought he was immune to blade attacks. A status window reveals the level 16 spider mob has swordsmanship level 8. Before he can process this nerf, a blast of high-pressure water strikes the tree trunk inches from him. The splash hits him for another 17 damage. He realizes he's trapped between a sword-wielding spider above and a water-spamming crab below. Cursing his absolutely trash RNG, tears well up in his eye as he realizes he's trapped in another dead end. On the ground, the giant swamp crab fires another bubble barrage up the tree. The protagonist jukes at the last second. The water beam misses him and hits the spider mob squarely in the face. The force of the blast knocks the spider off the tree. The spider lands below, absolutely tilted at the unprovoked attack. It immediately retaliates by shooting a stream of white webbing. The arachnid silk shot hits the crab, applying a slow debuff. Seizing the opening, the spider leaps down and uses arachnid slash on the crab's hard shell. The crab defends with crustacean carapace, hardening its shell to block the leg. The crab counterattacks with crustacean clamp, snapping its claws while the spider uses arachnid silk control to dodge. The crab is absolutely mauling at the sticky webs binding its claws. High in the tree, the protagonist watches the PvP chaos. He internally celebrates that his 5-head play to turn his enemies against each other has succeeded. The spider mob moves with blinding speed, delivering a precise crit to the crab's eye stalk. The spider hisses, ready to follow up, wrapping the crustacean in a silk prison. The crab is soon absolutely helpless and fully cocooned. The spider climbs its shell to claim the frag. The protagonist thinks the stinky crab is tied up like one from a grocery store, but the crab stares back, foam bubbling from its mouth. The bubbles gather quickly, glowing with a strange energy buildup. Suddenly, a huge blade of compressed water erupts from the crab's mouth with a deafening sound effect. The attack creates a whirlwind of water blades, instantly shredding the silk cocoon. Caught in the AoE nuke, the spider mob is immediately sliced into pieces in midair. A stray water blade slices the tree trunk, missing the protagonist by inches. Below, the giant swamp crab collapses from exhaustion, releasing a final weak stream of water as its mana drains. The forest falls silent. The spider mob is in pieces, and the crab lies motionless, tangled in torn silk. Seeing the danger has passed, the protagonist emerges from his camping spot. He approaches the immobilized crab, flaming it for wasting its mana and ending up in a pathetic state. However, he faces a dilemma on how to finish the tanky creature. Suffocating it is too risky, and he can't force mushrooms into its clamped mouth. Looking for a weapon, his gaze lands on a large, heavy rock nearby. He spreads his body over the stone, trying to absorb it into his inventory using slime space. System error. Insufficient storage space. He realizes his inventory size scales with his max HP, which is too low after the battle for the rock to fit. Choosing the frag over his loot hoard, he vomits his entire mushroom collection to free up inventory slots. With his inventory cleared, he successfully absorbs the massive rock. The immense weight makes his yellow body bulge, and he hits the ground with a heavy thud. He maulds about the weight debuff, but pushes on, dragging his rock-filled body. Using gravity tech, the protagonist lets go of the tree and drops like a stone toward the target. The giant swamp crab looks up in terror at the massive yellow object falling from the skybox. In a last, desperate attempt, it shoots one final high-pressure water stream. The jet hits the falling slime, but its momentum is too cracked. The protagonist tanks the damage, determined to absolutely delete his enemy. Boom! With a deafening crash, the rock-filled slime mold slams into the crab shell, creating a massive shockwave nuke. The dust settles, showing the protagonist atop the crushed crab shell. Overjoyed by his survival and the W, he laughs maniacally, celebrating his clutch as the last one standing. Without wasting a moment, he settles on his fresh kill. Sitting on the crab's overturned shell like a chef, he arranges the organs and roe like a soup bowl, using a piece of leg meat as a utensil. He dips the white crab meat into the rich yellow roe. His first bite absolutely overwhelms him. After days of eating moldy wood, snails, and insects, the fresh seafood is a flavor explosion. Tears stream down his slimy face as he realizes good food heals the soul. He eats everything, leaving no waste, and lies back on a log, absolutely stuffed. Status, level 14. Max HP 168. Fully recharged, he decides to use his new energy for an experiment. He sits before a rock, focusing on his internal structure. He squeezes his muscles, straining with all his might. His single eye bulges as he tries to force something out. He recalls the crab's bubble barrage, reasoning that skills can be learned through grinding practice. He strains, but only a few weak squirts shoot from his backside in the wrong direction. Nope. He tries again, aiming forward. Finally, he tenses his whole body, compressing his internal fluids to the limit. Pow! A high-speed jet of yellow fluid shoots from his body, piercing a hole through the crab shell. New skill unlocked, Cytoplasm Jet. Uses internal cytoplasm to launch body mass as a projectile. The protagonist pops off, absolutely hyped. He fires a rapid barrage, piercing the shell repeatedly with spam. The system confirms the skill has no cooldown. However, he quickly shrivels into a thin stick. System alert. HP is critical. He realizes that with no mana system, his body is the ammo. A bit tilted, he can't be a mage build. He eats the remaining crab to recover. While munching, a 200 IQ idea hits him. He finds a large chunk of yellow slime on the grass, the piece the spider sliced off earlier. He touches it to his main body, activating reclamation. As he absorbs the piece, memories flood in from its perspective. He realizes that while he was fighting, the severed piece had its own autonomous consciousness. It had been decomposing the grass around it the whole time. He realizes something absolutely cracked. Severed parts can farm independently. By reabsorbing them later, he can collect the HP and XP they've gathered. He hums a tune, delighted. I just discovered a bug exploit in the system. He imagines sending out multiple fragments to grind in different locations, turning his single mouth into many to drastically increase his leveling speed. He immediately tests this theory using division ability. A piece of his yellow body separates, costing him 10 HP, but both his main body and the split part look weak. He realizes a limitation. If his HP drops below 30, he enters a dangerous state of starvation debuff. With a max HP of 198, he reasons that with enough food to replenish his health bar, he can create as many clones as he wants. He strains his body and forcefully rips a large chunk of slime from his main form, taking 30 damage to create a substantial clone. Success. He imagines himself wearing a ninja headband, realizing the ability is like the shadow clone jutsu. Absolutely hyped, he raises a fist and declares it's time to start the grind. Clone A, directed to decompose a dead log. Clone B, sent to a nearby mushroom pile. His status screen confirms his level 14 gains. He's satisfied with his 5-head strat. Send out clones to farm resources while he stays back, munching leftover spider meat to keep his main body safe and at full HP. Mastering his body mechanics, he imagines himself in a cool humanoid armored form. Feeling incredibly OP, he visualizes physical attacks failing as his liquid body would just reconnect. He concludes physical attacks can't delete him, but his expression turns serious as he considers the one thing he still fears: magic. He sets a trap in the murky water, using small pieces of his yellow body as bait. A group of crabs follows the trail of food inland, unaware they're being led into a kill zone. High above, he clings to a tree, watching the crabs gather below. The crabs suddenly look up, noticing a massive shadow falling over them. He pushes the tree branch. Boom! The branch crashes down with devastating force, instantly deleting the crabs. Notifications: 6 kills. Level up. Ding, level 15. He drops to the ground, finishes off survivors with a rock, and farms the loot. Now at a higher level, he decides to practice combat. In his mind, he's a cool gunslinger preparing to fire a skill he calls Plasmodial Barrage. In reality, he unleashes a rapid storm of yellow slime bullets. The target smokes, and the system announces his cytoplasm jet has leveled to 6. However, the intensive training session takes a toll. He's shown shriveled and dried out, his HP critically low due to using his own body mass as ammo. He notes that after 2 days of hard grinding, both his DPS and accuracy have significantly buffed. A 200 IQ idea strikes him. He picks up a poisonous mushroom and a rock. He theorizes that wrapping a rock within the slime will significantly increase the shot's physical damage. He tests this immediately, firing a rock-infused shot that hits the target with a loud crack. "I'm a genius," he arrogantly declares. A soft cooing interrupts his celebration. He climbs a tree to investigate a strange light and peeks directly into a glowing hole. To his absolute shock, he's face to face with a spectral glowing blue owl. Its magical aura absolutely terrifies him. Fearing a spell nuke, he drops from the tree and frantically slithers away. But the owl doesn't aggro. It sits quietly, watching him dip. This is not a wild beast, but a magical skill called symbiotic scrying. Far away, a human woman looks through her hand like a telescope. Her right eye glows with the same blue light as the owl. She rides a large armored boar with 2 other adventurers. When a bearded man asks if she found anything, she lowers her hand. "Nothing important," she replies. "Just a strange little mob." The group of human adventurers, the pink-haired scout, the bearded warrior, and Little Steel, move through the forest map, unaware of the strange little mob's potential. Meanwhile, the slime mold absolutely panics, dipping as fast as possible. Believing the owl spotted him, he's terrified of aggroing a magic user and knows he can't mess with that build. He reaches a river, hoping to be safe on the other side, but he's unsure how to cross the gap. Remembering physics and the momentum theorem, he launches himself into the air. In mid-flight, he activates his plasmodial barrage skill. Instead of attacking, he fires the slime projectiles backward for propulsion tech. The move works, but costs him 80 points of self-damage as he rockets forward. The force propels him high through the trees, clearing the river easily. He crashes on the other side, absolutely exhausted, but relieved. Hinking he's escaped the danger zone, he munches dead wood to recover HP. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure debuff descends on him, a dark, fiery red aura. He freezes, feeling a presence more OP than the snake-tailed terror bird. He slowly turns, but the source of the fear is not the owl. Lying on the forest floor is a colossal severed claw with white scales and a black nail. It's massive enough to crush the trees. He stares in confusion, his single eye trying to process a giant finger. His fear turns to euphoric greed. He sees it as a legendary golden finger, a shortcut to a massive evolution. He laughs maniacally at his RNG. He immediately tries to consume it, spreading his body over the scales and activating dissolution. System alert. Decomposition failed. Reason: level gap too vast, target invulnerable. Instead of gaining XP, he takes continuous DOT damage. Realizing he's griefing himself, he activates autotomy, severing the connection to escape. A chunk of his body flies off as he recoils. He mauls about having legendary loot he can't use and decides to leave it, grind levels, and return later. Just as he makes this plan, the ground rumbles. The severed finger suddenly activates, glowing with energy and rocketing off the ground. It tears through the canopy and yeets away on its own. The launch sends shockwaves everywhere. Realizing he's caught in the AoE, the blast strikes the ground near him, creating a massive crater. He barely survives, trembling under a tree root. He realizes the further he travels, the more low elo he feels. Beneath him, the earth shows worms, gems, and a buried mimic mob waiting in the dark. Deep underground, the finger lands, but something sinister and alive. The slime mold checks his mental minimap. The golden finger is far northeast, and the magical owl is southwest. He finds a thick tree to establish a temporary base camp. With his dissolution skill, he starts melting through the bark. Narrow entrance, to block large mobs. Interior, spacious and comfortable. Lighting, a luminous mushroom, emits weak poison. Defenses, a poison mushroom plugs the door, a decoy chamber sits below, the real safe chamber is hidden above. He lies on his moss bed, chewing a twig like a cigar, enjoying a secure spawn point. His chill session is cut short by a loud, rhythmic buzzing. Tilted, he pokes his head out and flames the noise. He sees a massive swarm of wasps. Instead of fear, he gets a big brain idea. He fires a cytoplasm jet, absolutely deleting one wasp in midair. He then sits openly at the entrance, acting as bait. The swarm dives at the tree, thrusting their stingers. He quickly retracts into the narrow hole, causing the wasps to whiff or get stuck. They furiously spam attacks at the entrance, unaware they've just entered his kill zone. His fortress, the protagonist sighs with relief. He discovers his sticky body acts like flypaper tech. The attacking wasps get trapped, and the system notifies him he's gaining XP effortlessly. Seeing his cheese strat work, he gets more ambitious. He stops attacking and lets 2 survivors despawn, quietly following them through the forest to a massive wasp nest high in the canopy. From a branch, he observes their home base. His eye narrows as he plots to grief the nest. He reveals himself, catching the attention of the sentry mobs. The sentries release a pheromone signal, alerting the colony. A loud buzzing fills the air as thousands of wasps pour out. He stands his ground, thinking that since stings are useless against his body, more enemies just mean more XP drops. But the wasps use an unexpected meta. They swarm him, forming a tight vibrating ball and flapping their wings in unison. The friction creates intense heat like an oven. System warning: temperature debuff is critical. Status: cells dying. He absolutely panics, taking continuous diot, absolutely shook that the wasps can cook him alive. Refusing to get toasted, the slime mold retaliates with his plasmodial barrage. The slime projectiles absolutely shred the wasp workers and break their formation. The battle shifts when a new enemy spawns, a heavy tank unit that blocks his shots with a beeswax shield. The armored insect charges, its amber shield deflecting the once lethal slime bullets. He clings to the branch, realizing the hive's main guards have way higher stats than the scouts he farmed earlier. His eye widens in absolute shock as he spots a unique white-furred insect with a wooden staff. It waves its staff, conjuring a glowing magical circle overhead. Skill proc Swarm Summon. A massive army descends from the hive, raining down on the terrified slime. The enemy tier list is clear: wasp workers, defensive wasp guards, and a wasp mage commander. He trembles, realizing he faces an evolved form using magic abilities, his greatest fear. The wasp mage coldly issues a command, and the guards dive in to secure the frag. He unleashes his plasmodial barrage, firing yellow fluid at the incoming army. The attack is effective, absolutely deleting the insects from the sky, but the sheer numbers force him to spam non-stop, draining his biomass. To sustain the DPS, he uses a 200 IQ strat. While firing, he anchors to the branch and uses decomposition to drain nutrients from the wood, regenerating 10 HP per tick to offset the cost. Despite his infinite ammo tech, the guards press their attack. He's absolutely tilted, knowing he needs a projectile to break their defense. Seeing his attacks whiff, 2 wasp guards dive to finish the job. They crash into him, stabbing his gooey body, but physical contact is his specialty. He flames the soldiers for delivering themselves to his door as his body entraps them. The guards get stuck, their armor dissolving as he decomposes them alive. After farming the enemies, his inventory updates with wasp spears and a wasp needle. But a system alert warns his storage slots are full. He improvises, enveloping a sharp wasp spear in his slime as a projectile core, spinning it rapidly for stability and DPS. The buffed shot absolutely shatters the beeswax shield and skewers the soldier behind it. Seeing its guard get deleted, the wasp mage realizes its defenses are cooked. It waves its staff, and the entire swarm breaks formation, flying back to the hive and abandoning the assault. He remains on the branch, watching them dip. He scoffs, believing they retreated because they feared his cracked power. The battle intensifies, as the wasp mage forms a swirling ball of golden energy. The slime mold gets distracted. To him, it looks like honey loot. He actually wants to taste it. But the mage isn't offering a snack. It ignites the sphere, casting its spark ember ability. The fireball launches downward like a meteor nuke. The attack hits Bro for 70 damage, and he screams in pain. The mage begins a relentless spam attack. Flaming projectiles rain down. The slime mold scrambles away, realizing that fire is a hard counter to his body. He knows he can't win this matchup. He decides to dip. Bro fires his plasmodial barrage. 2 armored wasps move to intercept. Their shields combine to form a solid green wall, blocking the slime and protecting the mage. Their defensive meta is too strong, Bro complains. Accepting the L, he slides down the tree trunk while explosions tear up the wood behind him. The wasp mage calls for reinforcements using Swarm Summon. From the hive, a new enemy mob emerges, suicide bees. Their abdomens are bloated with glowing energy. They charge forward in a massive Zerg rush. They dive bomb the tree where Bro is camping. They detonate in a chain reaction, engulfing the area in flames. The slime leaps from the burning trunk to dodge the fire dot. He lands on a lower branch, but the mage is one step ahead. He orders his soldiers to cut the branch. It snaps. Bro falls. Below him, hundreds of suicide bees are waiting. Above him, the mage prepares an ultimate attack, a massive ball of energy, like a yellow sun. The mage hurls the spell downward, sacrificing his own troops just to get the kill. A mushroom cloud rises above the forest. The threat is deleted. As the dust settles, the forest goes calm. The wasp mage believes the intruder is dead. Suddenly, Bro bursts from the tree bark behind the guards. A sneak attack. Before they can react, the yellow predator engulfs the guards, trapping them. Earlier, he had eaten through the wood to create a secret tunnel. Just before the explosion, he used 150 HP to create a split body clone. The wasps focused all their fire on the decoy, while the real, smaller slime slipped past them and entered the nest. Bro moves through the tunnels. He passes the food storage. He passes the larvae chambers. He even finds a chamber filled with golden honeycombs. He is tempted, but he stays focused on the mission objective. He bursts into the deepest chamber and finds his target, the Queen Wasp. She is a massive, immobile creature boss. The intrusion alerts the guards. The Royal Guard, led by the furious Wasp Mage, spins around with glowing red eyes. Bro climbs onto the queen's abdomen. He holds a heavy rock over her head. "She's my hostage now," he warns. The queen trembles in terror. However, our MC miscalculates the situation. Instead of surrendering, the guards charge forward, ignoring the risk to their own queen. Bro's eyes widen. Negotiation has failed. With no other choice, he slams the rock down, brutally killing the queen. The Wasp mage freezes in shock. The effect is instant. Outside, thousands of wasps lose their flight ability. Inside the nest, the mage and the guards collapse. Bro explains the mechanics. The queen was a host machine. Without her, the entire swarm gets wiped. As the colony dies, the system announces a double level up. He has reached level 21. Status window. HP 918. New skill, Central Command level 2. Maxed skill, Pulsation. He tries to add points to the new skill, but nothing happens. Is this a useless ability? I have no one to command. He tries to upgrade Decomposition, but a warning pops up. Racial skills only improve with practice, no pay to win allowed. He checks his inventory. It's packed with hornet monster honey. It recovers 400 HP. This is a god tier drop. Exhausted from the raid, Bro sits in the grass, alone in the moonlight. He wonders why he feels complex emotions. As a slime, he has no heart. Suddenly, he has a tragic vision. It's a memory fragment from his prey, the giant swamp crab. He sees a young crab boy asking for his father. The vision shows the crab father in a suit, calling his wife. "I'm with clients," he says. "I can't come home yet." The mother comforts her son. "Your father is working hard for us." Midnight passes. The mother grows worried. She fears he has passed out drunk. So she and her son go into the dark night to find him. They walk through the dark alleys. The child sees a silhouette in the distance. He joyfully shouts that his father is back. The mother is confused. Why is the figure walking away from their home? She thinks he's just drunk and tells the boy to help him. The crab boy runs toward the figure. The silhouette turns. With a twisted red eye, the monster whispers, "Your daddy was delicious." The boy screams in horror. Shaken by the vision, Bro panics. "I have become the villain, the bad guy." He tries to calm his human mind, but as a monster in this world, he can't clear the guilt debuff. He sees predator eyes in the darkness. He accepts the law of the jungle, hunt or be hunted. He resolves that hunting and decomposing are his only options. Bro leaps through the undergrowth at maximum movement speed. He's looking for his clone, but he stops. He sees a bright, warm glow through the trees. He sneaks through the bushes. He sees 3 adventurers resting by a fire. Pink-haired scout, C rank. She pets a sleeping armored boar. Bearded tank man, B rank. He apologizes for getting them lost. Hooded edgelord, B rank. He's reading a book. He notes that magic communication is cut off. This forest is a maze dungeon. The conversation reveals a quest update. The guild master has been missing for 2 years. The master took a mission from the Pope to the swamp forest. He was never seen again. "The guild has crumbled," the tank man says. He thanks the others for joining his search squad. The edgelord cynically remarks that the scout girl could find work elsewhere since she can control magic beasts. The scout girl yells at him to shut up. Meanwhile, Bro strains to listen from the bushes. He only hears a few words, like guild and church. He realizes that learning about the human world's politics is crucial for his survival. He uses his shape-shifting ability. He extends a flat, thin tendril from the bush. My boy now listens intently from the grass. It is the perfect stealth build. The eavesdropping is suddenly interrupted. Edgelord, without even looking up from his book, calmly announces that a monster is nearby. Bro realizes he's been spotted, and he panics. His cover is blown. Before he can retract his tendril, an ice spike cast by the edgelord bursts from the ground. It impales the limb. The attack is devastating. A system notification confirms the frost effect is super effective. Desperate, the MC drags his frozen limb back into the bushes, leaving an icy trail behind him. The edgelord tells his companions he handled it. Tankman readies his shield, asking where the enemy mob is. Scout girl commands her boar mount to investigate. Encased in ice, Bro stares in horror as the boar looms over him, deciding it's a frozen treat. The boar crunches down on the slime. Bro screams internally as he's chewed. He tries to flee, thinking this is the end. He is convinced he's about to die in the boar's mouth. Just as he prepares for permadeath, Scout Girl shouts. She tells the boar not to eat the strange creature. She orders the boar to spit him out. Following her command, the armored pig spits the MC out in a glob of saliva. Scout Girl catches the sticky creature. With a warm expression, she says he feels familiar. She asks the little monster if he wants to form a contract with her. Bro is overcome with joy. He sees her as an angel. He mentally screams, "Yes!" but Tankman interrupts. "We must save our mana to escape the forest," he scolds. Mana is not to be wasted on a low-level slime. My boy tries to shout that he's a slime mold, but no sound comes out. Scout Girl agrees and places him back on the grass. Bro realizes with disappointment that the humans can't hear him. He decides to use body language. He contorts his yellow body, stretching his tendrils to form shapes on the ground. Bro proudly forms Chinese characters with his body, confident it will prove his intelligence. The plan backfires. Tankman completely misreads the situation. He asks if the slime is just making waste. The humans in this world don't read Chinese. He gives up on communicating, fearing they might delete him if he acts too strangely. Safely on the grass, he recalls the magical threat. The owl boss remains. Magical surveillance is his biggest weakness. He decides to test a new skill from the Wasp battle, Nucleus Command. A digital grid scans his surroundings. The blue grid expands through the trees, mapping the dark forest. The system locks onto a target. He realizes Nucleus Command tracks the pieces of himself. He rushes through the forest, following the signal to recover his lost mass. The signal grows stronger. It leads him to a large, glowing yellow mass by a fallen log. Bro is shocked. The clone has grown massive on its own. He activates reclamation and merges with the giant clone. The system announces a huge gain in EXP and HP. He leaps toward the next signal to continue his harvest. He finds and absorbs another clone. His poison resistance upgrades to level 8. The combined experience levels him up to 22. He activates Nucleus Command again, but the signal is faint. Scanning the area, he spots movement near some mushrooms. To his horror, an acid snail is devouring his clone. Enraged, Bro yells at the creature and fires a cytoplasm jet. The attack knocks the enemy mob away, leaving the clone trembling. He acts like the clone is a bullied child. He promises to comfort it. He approaches the mushroom patch to reclaim his mass. Suddenly, a fast red blur strikes from above, smashing the mushrooms. A wild boss appears. A long, sticky tongue scoops up the slime, stealing the clone right in front of him. The culprit is a fat green frog. It swallows the clone with a satisfied croak. My boy stares in shock as the frog burps. His EXP is gone. The MC unleashes a plasmodial barrage. The shot hits the frog in the face with great force, knocking it backward. Bro scoffs, boasting he is now strong enough to fight a snake-tailed terror bird, but his confidence turns to confusion. The frog isn't defeated. It opens its mouth and catches the projectile, unharmed. Before he can fire again, the frog leaps high into the air. It dives into the river with a splash, escaping into the deep water. Bro rushes to the water's edge, shouting that the frog can't escape. The frog's head pops out, and it croaks. He fires a volley of shots into the water. His attacks are useless. The projectiles hit the surface and lose their momentum, splashing harmlessly. He realizes he's powerless as long as the frog is underwater. The frog suddenly leaps out of the river. Bro deduces the frog needed air. He declares it a dead man. But the frog isn't just breathing, it's charging up. It pushes off the water, using power release. It launches itself toward the shore like a rocket with its mouth open. My boy narrowly dodges as the frog crashes into the rock. Bro fires a stone-hardened barrage, hitting the frog's eye with precision. The MC quickly retreats up a tree for safety. Safe on a branch, he admits he got too cocky. A hunter can become the prey. Below, the frog clutches its bleeding eye. The frog leaps toward the branch. Bro is out of stone ammunition. He fires liquid slime instead. The frog opens its mouth and eats the projectiles in midair. His attacks are just feeding the monster, literally buffing the enemy. A long, sticky tongue shoots out. It slams into the MC, latching on tight. A tug of war begins. The branch cracks under their combined weight. It snaps. Bro falls. He holds the broken wood, terrified. Below, the frog waits with its mouth open, ready to swallow him whole. In a split second, he uses reverse momentum. He wraps around the broken branch, aiming the sharp end down. He thrusts the spear into the frog's mouth, shouting, "Eat this!" The blow knocks the frog backward. It falls. The dead frog crashes into the water. Victory. But the loot is lost. The corpse sinks into the murky depths. Suddenly, the water bubbles. Boss music intensifies. Two glowing, menacing eyes appear in the depths. A beam of light erupts from the water. The blast slices the air next to him. It hits the tree trunk, cutting through it with terrifying power. The blast sends the tree and the screaming slime mold flying into the night sky. The enemy reveals its new form. It is a pale, glowing entity with red eyes.